Now paper 9. Which flower is associated with Northern Ireland? That's the shamrock. Okay. The flower associated with Northern Ireland is the shamrock. Now that we know shamrock is associated with Northern Ireland, next question, which flower is associated with England? That's the rose. The rose is associated with England. And which flower is associated with Wales? The daffodil. Okay, the daffodil is associated with Wales. And which flower is associated with Scotland? It's the thistle. Thistle is associated with Scotland, right? Next question. The last battle between Britain and France was the Battle of Waterloo. Is it true or false? That's a truth. So the last battle between Britain and France was the Battle of Waterloo. Okay. Now just few things about Battle of Waterloo, which is important for this test. So when was it fought? Battle of Waterloo was fought in 1815. Where? In the Belgium. Okay, Battle of Waterloo fought in the Belgium. What was the significance? It was the last battle between Britain and France. Okay. And then who was the British commander? The Duke of Wellington led the British forces, and Napoleon Bonaparte led the French forces. So it was fought between Napoleon Bonaparte from the French and Duke of Wellington from the British. Result: British victory, which ended Napoleon's rule and the Napoleonic Wars. Britain fought alongside Prussian forces. This is important. Yeah, Prussian forces. Now, historical impact. The victory established British military prestige and marked the end of French dominance in Europe. Okay, it established British military prestige. Now the question is, which is the highest value note in circulation in the UK? Okay, because it's not pound 100. So pound 100 is not the highest value note. The highest value note is pound 50. Okay. And you see we have pound 5, pound 10, pound 20, pound 50 notes here. Some banks in Scotland and Northern Ireland, they issue their own banknotes which are valid throughout the UK, but may sometimes be less familiar to the people. Okay. And modern UK banknotes, they are made from polymer like plastic rather than paper, making them more durable and more secure, right? Now next question, where is the Lake District National Park located? That's located in England. Lake District is in England. Now which two responsibilities will you have as a British citizen? So the answer is, if you wish to be a permanent resident or citizen of the UK, you should respect and obey the law, look after yourself and your family, respect the rights of others, including their right to their opinions, treat others with fairness, and look after the area in which you live and environment. So look after yourself and your family, respect the right of others, including the right to their opinions, respect and obey the law, treat others with fairness, look after the area in which you live. Okay. Next question is, who was born in Stratford-upon-Avon? So we all know William Shakespeare was born in the Stratford-upon-Avon, England. Why is 1928 an important year in women's history? Now it is important because women were given the right to vote at the age of 21, the same as men. Okay. Now what does Hogmanay refer to? What does Hogmanay refer to? In Scotland, the 31st of December, New Year's Eve, is called Hogmanay. In Scotland, the 31st of December, New Year's Eve, is called Hogmanay. What is the capital city of Northern Ireland? The capital city of Northern Ireland is Belfast. The capital city of Northern Ireland is Belfast. Now, which of the following took place between 1899 and 1902? So that was the Beer War. The Beer War took place in 1899 and 1902 in South Africa. Now, see about the Beer War, it happened between 1899 to 1902 in South Africa, and Britain fought against the Beers, which were descendants of the Dutch settlers. Okay, and the war was fought over the control of valuable gold and diamond mines in South Africa. Right? What happened after the war? The British won. So Beer War, which was fought in 1899-1902 South Africa between British and the Dutch settlers, the Beers, and the British won in this war. It was fought for the control of the gold, and the Beer republics became part of the British Empire. Significance: this was one of the first wars extensively covered by media and photographers. Okay, the war highlighted issues with British military tactics and led to subsequent reforms. Right? So remember the Beer War. Northern Ireland uses a system called individual registration, and all those entitled to vote must complete their registration form. And that is true. So Northern Ireland that uses a system called individual registration, and all those entitled to vote must complete their own registration form. Okay. Which two of the following policies are not controlled by the devolved administrations? So defense and immigration. So basically policy and laws governing defense, foreign affairs, immigration, taxation and social security, they remain under the central UK government control. However, many other public services like education, they are controlled by the devolved administrations. Many other public services like education, they are controlled by devolved services. But UK government, like central UK government will control, it will control defense, foreign affairs, immigration, taxation, social security. Okay. Next question. How old do citizens of the UK, the Irish Republic and the Commonwealth have to be to stand for public office? Okay. So they have to be at least 18 years of age. Now, most of the citizens of the UK, the Irish Republic or the Commonwealth, aged 18 or over, can stand for public office. There are some exceptions, including members of the armed forces, civil servants and people found guilty of certain crimes. Next question. How did the government promote policies of free trade during the Victorian age? Okay. So during the Victorian times, the government began to promote policies of free trade, abolishing a number of taxes on imported goods. One example was the repeal of corn laws in 1846. Okay, so during the Victorian age, they abolished a number of taxes on imported goods, and that's how they promoted policies of free trade. Now, next question is, who was Admiral Nelson? Who was he? So, Admiral Nelson was in charge of the British fleet at the Battle of Trafalgar against the Spanish fleet, and he was killed in the battle. Okay, so Admiral Nelson was in charge of the British fleet at the Battle of Trafalgar against the Spanish fleet, and he was killed in the battle. Right? So let's see a few facts about Battle of Trafalgar. When was it fought? 1805. Location was off the coast of Spain near Cape Trafalgar. British commander Admiral Nelson, and British fought against combined French and Spanish fleets. Result: decisive British victory. Okay. The victory confirmed Britain's naval supremacy and prevented Napoleon's planned invasion of Britain. Admiral Nelson's death was killed during the battle, becoming a national hero. A monument in Trafalgar Square, London, commemorates Admiral Nelson and this famous victory. Okay, so there's a monument in the Trafalgar Square, London, which commemorates the Admiral Nelson in this famous victory. So see, Trafalgar Square came from this name. There is a Cape Trafalgar in the coast of Spain. Now, historical impact. The battle secured the British control of the seas for over a century and was crucial in defeating Napoleon. Right. Now, next question is, during the Middle Ages, who were the serfs? Serfs were peasants who had a small area of their lord's land where they could grow food. So they were peasants. Serfs were peasants who had a small area of their lord's land where they could grow food. Which invention led to the rapid development of industry in Britain during the 18th and 19th centuries? So which invention? It was the steam power. The Industrial Revolution saw rapid development due to machinery and the use of steam power. MPs can only be contacted by post. Is it true? False. You can contact MPs by letter or telephone at their constituency office or their office in the House of Commons. Many representatives hold local surgeries where constituents can speak in person. You can contact MPs by letter or telephone at their constituency office or at their office in the House of Commons. So how do you contact MPs? You can by letter, by telephone, or their office in the House of Commons. Many representatives hold local surgeries where constituents can speak in person. Now, next question is, which movement challenged the authority of the Pope? It was the Reformation. The Reformation was a movement against the authority of the Pope and the ideas and practices of the Roman Catholic Church. Okay. Now, just few more things about Reformation is, it happened in the early 1500, and it was a religious movement that challenged the authority of the Pope and the Roman Catholic Church. And who was the key figure in this? King Henry VIII, who broke away from the Roman Catholic Church in 1530s. Okay, it was King Henry VIII. Reason for Henry VIII's break was the Pope refused to grant him a divorce from Catherine of Aragon. So the Pope was not giving him a divorce from Catherine of Aragon. Result, so Henry VIII established the Church of England, also called Anglican Church, with the monarch as its head. Protestant movement. The Reformation led to the establishment of Protestant churches across Europe. So Protestants, they will believe in a more direct relationship with God, reading the Bible in their own language and rejecting many Catholic practices. So that created a religious division between Catholics and the Protestants that affected British history for centuries. And Henry VIII closed the monasteries and took their wealth, significantly changing English society and landscape. The Reformation led to periods of religious persecution and conflict in Britain and established Protestantism as the dominant religion in England and shaped British identity. Okay, so Henry VIII is an important figure and happened in the 1500s, early 1500s. Okay. So that was Reformation. It was a movement against the authority of the Pope and the ideas and practices of the Roman Catholic Church. Right, now let's come to the next question, which is, what English king introduced the Domesday Book? So it was William the Conqueror. He sent officials across England to list towns, villages, people and property. This was called the Domesday Book. So just little bit more about the Domesday Book. So obviously William the Conqueror, he sent officials across England to list towns, villages, people and property, right? and then it was completed in the year 1086, okay, by William the Conqueror. It was commissioned by William the Conqueror to record who owned land and property across England, so taxes could be collected. Okay. What it recorded was details of the towns, villages, people, animals, property values, and it covered most of the England but not northern areas. And it was called Doomsday because its records were as final as the Day of Judgment. It was written in Latin, and it is the oldest public record in England and an invaluable source of understanding Norman England. It's kept in the National Archives in London. Okay. Now, question is, who was the Butler? What did the Butler Act introduce in 1944? Let's see. So you see, this Butler Act uh, it introduced free secondary education in England and Wales. So the Education Act 1944, Butler Act, introduced free secondary education in England and Wales. Okay. So the Education Act in 1944 is also called Butler Act. That is the Education Act in 1944. Okay. And just remember, the World War II was still going. The World War II was going on from 1939 to 1945. So in that time, they introduced the Butler Act, which introduced free secondary education in England and Wales. Now, what is the small claims procedure? So the small claims procedure is an informal way of helping people to settle minor disputes without spending a lot of time and money using a lawyer. Okay. So the small claims procedure is an informal way of helping people to settle minor disputes without spending a lot of time and money on using a lawyer. Now, next question is, what building was constructed in Hyde Park to hold the Great Exhibition of 1851? So, it was the Crystal Palace. In 1851, the Great Exhibition opened in Hyde Park in the Crystal Palace, a huge building made of steel and glass. So, this was the building which was constructed in Hyde Park. So, the Crystal Palace uh, was constructed in 1851. It was the Great Exhibition opened in Hyde Park. Okay, and it's made of steel and glass. Who was Florence Nightingale? Florence Nightingale was a nurse and is often regarded as the founder of modern nursing. Okay, so Florence Nightingale is regarded as the founder of modern nursing.